Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, goeienaand, mahaha, bonsoir, notte. A massive welcome to all our attendees connecting from across Africa and the world. We are thrilled to have you here today. My name is Tokir Ahmed. I'm your host, and you're tuned into the PIANC Africa webinar series, your essential source for expertise in global waterborne transport infrastructure with a unique African blend. Thank you for making time to be part of our third highly anticipated event. Today, we are doubling down to make sure that we, commit to bringing you world-class technical insight. And from here, we want to grow this further. So do expect quite a lot more coming this year. Today's topic is not only thought-provoking, it's future-defining for the African coastline. We are diving into PIANC's updated guidance on planning of fishing ports, Working Group 224, which sets out what makes fishing harbors quite unique. The discussion aims to show how Working Group 224 moves us from ad hoc work to data-driven phased planning anchored in vessel mix and market flows. Fishing ports are, very important to us as Africa and, globally as well. They are integrated systems. It's not only about the keys and the basin and infrastructure. It's about, the auction process, your ice, the power availability, all the operations, and that mix up together with your mid-ocean and sediment behavior. Quite dynamic, a lot of different dynamics to take into account. And your working group 224 covers that very nicely. The manual covers all operations, considerations, financial considerations, a very key, manual to get hold of. And if you want to get hold of it, do become a PIANC member, then you have free access. But I will then, guide you through that as we go along. I will be dropping notes in the chat to have a look out for that. Just regarding, becoming a PIANC member. If you have any comments, questions, please do, drop it in the chat as well. So just for those who are new, and this is still quite a newish platform, and so the core purpose of running these webinars is to to stimulate robust global debate on everything to do with ports, coastal waterways, and all the engineering aspects to it. Innovation and smart technologies that is coming up within the space. We're looking at global engagement and collaboration across all fields of water transport, and also to create a platform for the African voice. Something that you can expect in future for us to have more and more African presentations going forward. Again, it's a new field. You guide us what you want to see. Drop your comments in the chat box. How can we improve? We want to bring value back to you as the audience. So to everyone, welcome. Everyone is welcomed. You don't have to be a professional. If you're a young student, so at school want to learn what is port and coastal all about. If you have kids at school, please invite them to these platforms. Retirees, anyone that is interested, from other fields to find out what is it that we do as PIANC and as port and coastal engineers. Please, do share this widely, as we then do share the future invites. So we encourage your participation. It is not only one-sided. We obviously have a main presentation followed by a panel discussion, but again, it's not one-sided. We want to engage with you as the audience. So when the time comes, at the end, put up your hand, drop your comments in the chat box. We'll come to it. If we don't get to it, we will definitely still come back to you. Let's make it interactive. That's the whole idea. So we've got our esteemed guests that we've invited today. I'll ask them just to introduce themselves. We'll start with Martin. Martin, if you can come through just a brief introduction, tell us who you are, what you do. Thanks.
Yeah, Martin Mannion, independent port consultant. I have about 35 years experience since qualifying as a civil engineer. It's always been in the maritime design, planning and construction, and that's been international. It includes fishing harbours, but also other types of ports, and that does include projects in Africa. So I'm pleased to be here today to talk about the work, particularly of the working group on the planning of fishing ports, and you explain what's in the guidance document and try and point out the issues and main features that need to be taken into account. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thanks, Martin. Thank you for that. So Martin's going to be the main presenter for today. We're then joined by two panel members. So we've got Captain Aziz is supposed to be online. We're going to try and get hold of him. So Captain Aziz from Nigeria. He's been in the industry for quite a while. So when he comes through, we'll then introduce him. Then we've got Engineer Stefan. If you want to come through, just introduce yourself as well, Stefan.
Hello and good afternoon to all of us. Good evening to others too across the world. My name is Engineer Stephen Ampiao. I am a civil engineer by training some 25 years ago. I have been working in the ports of Tema in Ghana and in the port of Takoradi for the past 25 years. Until last year, I was the head of civil engineering for the ports of Tema. Last year until now, currently, I am the general manager for the Tema Fishing Harbour, responsible for the day-to-day running and administration of the fishing harbour in Tema. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Stephen. It'll be great just to get your views afterwards once the presentation is done. Thank you for that. Just to note, colleagues, this is being recorded. We haven't uploaded the first or the second video yet. The intention is that we will put this on YouTube, and yeah, so that you have future access. And if you are watching this on YouTube, we'll create a channel. Do like and subscribe below. So down below. So recording this now. So when you do watch it, hopefully in future people then subscribe and like it. Thank you. I think having said that, we can then jump straight into the presentation. So Martin, let me hand over to you. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can now see the slides. This is about a 40-minute presentation. And as we said before, the focus is on the planning of fishing ports. Just trying to move it on.
Okay.
So we're talking about this guidance document, which was published in January last year. I'll try to explain what the content is, what it does cover, and what the important features are when you're considering planning a fishing port. I'll go through some case studies. In the document that was published, we had a lot of case studies in it. In this presentation, I'm showing some additional ones as well to try and give it more of a wider flavor, and then some conclusions at the end. So why do we need to have a PIANC guidance on fishing ports? Of course, there are many guidelines already in existence on the design of ports, quays, even the seismic design, for example, the paving, breakwaters, etc., the coastal aspects. But when it comes to fishing ports, they're that little bit different, and that's why it's worth having a separate guideline that calls out the things that are unique to fishing ports and which need more careful attention. So one of the big features that is often quite different is that there are often much smaller harbours than for ports like Tema or Takoradi, for example. And when you have smaller harbours, smaller breakwaters, you tend to be more at risk of sediment issues, for example. It's a little bit more challenging to get the wave exposure and downtime at the berths correct. And then, of course, the next feature is fishing vessels. You get around the world, you get a wide variety of fishing vessels. There are different sizes, different levels of keys can be required. And of course, the cargo, the fish that you're handling, how do you get it on and off? And preserving what they call the cold chain, keeping it fresh as long as possible is very important. Fishing harbours, where possible, you need to have auction halls or a market of some sort where you can sell it. Ice plants is ideal so that you can preserve the fish for longer. And being fish, you end up with more specialized equipment to cover the range of operations that you have to carry out at a fishing harbor and or market, etc. So the aim always with this guideline was to show what the unique aspects were, but not repeat what was in existing guidelines elsewhere. If there was a good existing guideline on paving, for example, we would point to that. So why did PIANC think it was worth doing? They actually had an existing document from 1998. It was 30 or 40 pages long. Things have changed over time, of course. So a new guideline process was started. It took a number of years. It was one of those guidelines that was disrupted by the COVID process. So we had more online meetings than in-person meetings as a result. But the remit was to update and extend the previous chapters on fishery resources, the planning, technology, the use of IT, which of course has changed a lot in 25 or 30 years, and what do auction halls these days require. We also added chapters on disaster resilience and maintenance. And the idea here is to cover both new fishing port development as well as the update and improvement of existing ones. Because of course, ports and harbours never stand still. There's always some change potentially required. And as I said before, we try not to duplicate. We refer to existing guidance where possible. So the working group typically had about 15 to 20 members. Some joined, some left because of work commitments. But you can see we had representation from every continent on the world, 15 countries in all. A bit of a more European experience because of the development of fishery harbours there. But for example, in Africa, we had South Africa and Egyptian representatives, Keith Mackey and Mahmoud Sharan. So I've got two slides here that describe the report structure. So the first two chapters really are a lead-in of why the report does what it does, what it covers. The second chapter really is about fisheries as a resource worldwide. But of course, the focus of this report is not on deciding the market for a fishing harbour or the species that should be pursued, etc. It's about the planning of the harbour itself. And you can see by the number of pages, chapter 3 on planning is the biggest chapter at 58 pages long. We then have 12 pages on being disaster resilient. And there, within the main text and in an appendix, we lean on the experiences around the world in that. And that, for example, includes tsunami impacts in Japan and other disaster resilient features that need to be taken into account. There's a short chapter about the running or institutional aspects of fishing harbours. And then we have 17 pages on cost benefit. But then the next two chapters are quite important. It's guidelines on auction halls. So 35 pages there, but with much more in an appendix, and 31 pages on IT, the Internet of Things, digitalization within fishing ports. So both of those two chapters tie together and are significantly extended from the past. So the other chapters, we have a short reference on maintenance, where to find the right maintenance information. We talk about the training of staff for fishing harbours, which is also very important to get operations going correctly. And then we talk about the important features on environment, but generally we're referring to existing guidance where possible. But what you can see in the appendices here is we have 85 pages of case studies on disaster resilience, planning, maintenance, etc. There are particular case studies of whole harbours, and then there are case studies of auction halls in particular, for example. Or at the end, how different countries have organised the running of fishing harbours across a country. With 15 pages on regulations and standards that apply to the fishery products, so about cold chain and quality of fish. And also we finish with the glossary of terms, etc., that come into that. Every aspect of ports and marine has its own acronyms, as you'll know. So what happens within fishing harbours? Of course, you've got fish landing, and quite often it could be boxes that you see on the top left being craned off. There are many different means of getting fish to and from shore. You can see along the top, you can see the weighing, often you get the grading on the bottom there. You get fish weighed, you get them graded for what quality they are. This could be visually with labeling, etc. And on the bottom left, you may have harbours that provide cold ironing, shore power through seasons where fishing doesn't take place, for example. So that's an activity that can take place. There's a lot of equipment that could be involved. It could be manual handling of boxes. There may be conveyors to and from shore. You might have jib cranes, conveyor belts, etc. If it's a fish processing factory, you may be pumping the likes of mackerel straight from a fishing boat through a tube straight into a fish factory. So that is another activity that can take place. Onshore, you're going to have sorting machinery, and then you've got ice making. And again, on the bottom left, you can see ice making on the left, ice flakes being generated in a harbour in Sri Lanka. And then the one next to it is ice being pumped onto a ship in France. So there are a lot of different equipment options that could be involved in a harbour. So just to talk about the planning chapter, it being the lengthiest one. So what sort of topics does it cover? You can see just by the topics, there's information about what the survey requirements are. You've got to understand the natural conditions very well. And then it gets into the fishing vessels themselves. What are the types, the dimensions? So we have tables that show the typical dimensions, depth, beam, length, etc., of the range of fishing vessels that you could potentially get at your harbour. And they are different per type of fishing vessel. Then we get into classifying fishing harbours, and we try to deal with fishing harbours at 3 levels. And one is at the artisanal, smaller boat end. Then we have medium-sized fishing port infrastructure and deep-sea fishing harbours, which increase in complexity. Another feature that goes on is these days in many places around the world is you have the growing development of aquaculture or fish farms, and that has different requirements for fishing harbours as well. And finally, we put a chapter in on what our fish arena sounds like a funny term, but it's actually just a fishing harbour mixed with a marina. And this is a frequent occurrence around the world where yachts and motor cruise boats may be mixed with a fishing harbour, but hopefully segregated. We go to the next part. So this goes on, this whole chapter has an element that talks about the fishing gear repair areas and storage areas that may be required, about wastewater treatment, about bilge water, shipyards, etc. And then we get into the lifespan, risk and return period decisions that have to be made for a harbour. So there are a lot of different issues that come in a harbour. But just to go back to the general high level. So for planning considerations from a marine perspective, the principal items you need to work on are what are the number, the size, and the type of fishing vessels that need to be catered for in the harbour that you're looking at. And of course, that can change over time. So you're either determining it for a new harbour, or you're reviewing and updating your requirement for an existing harbour, because that will change the infrastructure requirements, both at the berth, at the moorings, and on shore, in order to best meet the local market demand for fish. The next step, of course, is how are the fish landed, which boxes is a frequent method around the world. Pumps is less frequent, but boxes with or without cranes or conveyors may be a feature. And another peculiar aspect with fishing harbours is fishing boats tend to be lower, have a lower freeboard than most of the port vessels or cargoes that are handled. So often fishing quays end up being that bit lower than dry cargo, non-fish product handling quays or container quays, for example. A big issue, of course, is understanding sedimentation, whether there's dredging, capital or maintenance to be required. And that is down to having the right met-ocean data in the first place. So waves, winds, sediment movement, etc. And really, you're always going to be working from a better base of knowledge if you can have locally recorded waves, ideally, and tie them to offshore longer-term wave recordings. And then currents may be an issue for particular harbours. I mean, I can think down in South Africa, for example, the entrance to Durban Harbour is particularly challenging for currents, as some of you will know. And then sedimentation, sediment movement along the coast can be a very significant feature for fishing harbours. And assessing these issues is very much assisted these days by numerical modelling where possible. And that can include waves, sediment, currents, but also navigation, because safe vessel navigation is very important. You've got to determine the channel alignments that work, and of course, get your berths so that you have the right amount of shelter available and the downtime that you're looking. Minimize the downtime at the berths or the moorings, which may be, of course, separate per harbour. You can have a landing place for the fish, and you may moor the vessels separately. So just to give some images of vessels in Africa, you can really range from the very large ones. On the top left, you can see a trawler off Sierra Leone. And these can be very large vessels, very different requirements. Then purely numerically, there are a lot more small scale day boats, you might say, which land on beaches in some places, and Senegal is one example. And Tema, Ghana, we have within Tema Harbour a large area for artisanal fishing boats, and I've seen it many times before. And it is sheltered, and the boats may be packed in as closely as possible in different forms of moorings. Morocco is on the right, a slightly different small vessel shown there, and it can vary per location, the type of vessels you may be dealing with for your particular harbour. One aspect to mention is in some situations, if you've got vessels landing on the beach, they are, of course, going to be smaller. They're more likely to be day boats, i.e. they go somewhere and come back within a day. And why do they do that? Because, well, firstly, they're landing on a beach. Secondly, they may or may not have ice to go much further, because if you're going to be more than a day, you need the ice to preserve the fish. Otherwise, it's not going to be much value when you get back to sell on. So these are the sort of considerations that come in. And sometimes the creation of fishing harbours is to move from the scenario shown in the top right picture towards a more sheltered facility with ice provision, etc. So if you're planning on the land side of a fishing harbour, what do you need? Well, firstly, how's that fish being sold? Is it a market haul or auction haul? How is that auction being held? Is it like, you might say, like a shout or a shout auction, or is it partly digital where fish may be sold online? So all that needs to be taken into account, and that determines the amount of equipment you need, the amount of space, etc. Secondly, are you providing ice to the vessels? Do you need an ice plant? And also, is that ice being used? Are you using ice within the auctional haul area to preserve the fish until it's sold and shipped on somewhere else by truck. Fishing vessels, of course, if they're going anywhere too far, will need fuel. So how is your fuel being provided? Depending on the type of fishing that's taking place, you may need to mend the nets. That may mean areas that are open where you stretch the nets, or else net mending sheds. So that may be a requirement. If it's aquaculture, the fish farm holding pens may need maintenance as well, of course, and cranes to lift in and out the gear that is required to support those operations. And I gave an example before of shore power where boats are not working. They may be just preserved with shore power through a winter, for example. And of course, boats will want water or to deal with billed water, etc., sewage, etc., where possible. Of course, the fishing harbour may or may not need security, but it certainly may need some offices to help with the running of it, and other facilities for agents. You have to choose whether you're having a shipyard as well. And not every fishing harbour will, of course, have a shipyard, but across a network, you may be making decisions about whether the network of fishing harbours needs a synchro lift to lift the boats out of the water onto rails on shore, where you can then maintain them in the dry. Maybe use a slipway to pull them up if they're not too heavy. The very big ones need to go into a dry dock, but of course that's a very expensive feature to add to a fishing harbour, but it does happen. So just looking at auction halls, these can be quite complex because what you're doing is you're dealing with fish landings. You've got to wash them, sort them, grade and weigh them, put them on display, and then auction them. Then they go off, they might get packed up. You might be adding value by packing in some way for downward end user use. And typically it is trucked out, so you need a truck or docking station to move it on. So any auction hall typically will include some ice making facilities, ideally clean water supply, and obviously has to be near the quay to get the fish in there as soon as possible into that temperature controlled area. So just looking at it in a different perspective, a cross section here in another plan, you can see it going from landing quay all the way through to that truck at the other end. And you've got to decide what processes are going to happen inside that building, and therefore what space is required for the volume of fish that you expect to occur at this harbour. Now, I did mention before, you can get fish processing factories. So there are some harbours where the fish processing factories take everything straight off the fishing vessels to their fish processing factory. So there isn't an auction hall. So you need to work out what is happening at your harbour. And it may be a mix of the two, of course. So around the world, the use of technology is increasing. Why is this? This is because if you can show a track record of how the fish has moved along the supply chain, you can prove its quality better. You can sell to a wider market. So you may have in-person or online auctions, or a mix of the two. So how are the auctions going to happen? Top left is a picture, I think that one's in a Spanish fishing harbour, where it's on screen, but also there are agents sitting around making decisions as well. And ideally, people will be looking to get tickets that show that that chain of control of the quality of the fish, so you can maintain the cold chain through and get a better value for your fish, basically. But it requires money in the first place to create this system. That's the issue, and the system, the market has to be ready for it. We move on to the next one. So just to pick out an example of something else that was in, where possible, we've tried to give examples of what happens in other places. So this is a table that's within the document, which just focuses on how wide are landing quays between the quay edge and the fishing hall. So you can see a lot of them are in the 5 to 10 meter range, but you do get outliers. And that can be for particular reasons. So we've shown data wherever we can within the guidance document. Just to move on to new fishing port examples. So why would a new fishing port be needed? It's because you're creating sheltered berths. And those sheltered berths could be because the location with boats landing on the beach, I mean, that can be extremely challenging in seasonal conditions and dangerous for fishermen, of course, but it restricts the size of the vessel. If you can move to a sheltered harbour, you can move from day boats, which are smaller, to multi-day boats, which can go further out and perhaps avoid overfishing a local resource and fish further away, where they may get better quality fish as well. And that, of course, is improved if ice is available to do that process. So if you can bring ice with you, you are preserving the fish better and you get a better value when you come back, particularly if you change from selling on a beach to having a proper market hall or auction facility. And of course, the fuel to make it all work. So the whole idea here is you're improving conditions for vessels, potentially changing to multi-day from day boats, if that suits your local market. So at the start, you've got to understand what is the local market that is being addressed, what are the sizes of vessels and numbers that I talked about before to be catered for within your harbour. And of course, you might also make it expandable so you can go in phases. Picking the right site is very important. So on the right-hand side here, top right, you can see a picture on the east coast of Sri Lanka. It's actually a fishing harbour under construction. So you see that the quay is under construction and a breakwater. Before that construction, this was just an open bay where the boats landed on the beach, like it can be seen on part of that photo. So it's changing from one scenario to the other. Although many times you can get a harbour that has a landing quay, like here in a breakwater to provide shelter, and the boats may still be stored on the beach, just more sheltered than before. Another Sri Lankan example, and my apologies for all the Sri Lankan examples, it's because I've got a lot of experience there. The middle and bottom photos are from Dikawita on the west coast of Sri Lanka, and this was a completely new harbour also. So you can see the breakwaters built, a new quay, and provision of market areas, net mending areas, etc., and ice plants for larger fishing vessels than would have happened in the past. So just moving to a UK example, when you look at the photo on the right, you've got a maze of harbour arms. This is a fishing harbour that's been there for hundreds of years. And you can imagine that the inner small harbour, South Harbour, is where it all started. And then different arms, breakwaters got added over time, and it's expanded seaward in order to add deeper water and allow for more boats. And that is exactly how that harbour developed over time. So it can go from, you can see an area with only 3 meters of water up to 9.6 meters draft areas. It has a ship lift, 2 auction halls, and in this case, a dry dock for larger vessels. Ice provision, fuel, bilge water, etc. And it's been a gradual process over time. So just to give you another bit of perspective on it, the top right picture is an overall perspective of the harbour. The 2 long, thin buildings with the red bricks and grey roofs, that hopefully you can see a cursor on, those are 2 auction halls, and in between the grey building is an ice plant. Bottom left is showing a synchro lift where fishing vessels are taken onshore, on rails, put onto cradles and maintained. If necessary, they go into painting sheds for repainting. And the older harbour, inner harbour, is for the smaller vessels, that is via a lock. That harbour has expanded over time, and it is already planning to do so further. So the outer orange here, you can see extra breakwaters are proposed to be added to add over 700 meters of quay to minus 10 meters. And that's to cater for new, larger fishing vessels. And they're trying to add laydown area, but they're trying to make it adaptable for offshore wind as well, because that happens in the local market. And this time, of course, what they're doing is they're adding a larger dry dock. And then the services include water bunkering, shore power, and a heavy lift area. So that's an example of gradual evolution of a fishing harbour that has been reasonably established for a long time. At another scale in Chile, the government has looked to create better conditions for fishermen, and that meant creating a harbour where there was none at this particular location. So there's over 700 fishermen locally, 93 vessels. The problem was the location is very wave exposed. So in this case, what they're doing is they have a short pier and a crane, and basically in the extreme conditions, they take all the boats out of the water. And this model has happened in a number of locations in Chile. And this is for abalone in this particular example. And this is a completely different example. So within Japan, there are over 3,000 fishing harbors, and Japan is an importer of fish from around the world, from all over the world, but it has significant fisheries of its own. So in this case, Area 1 is your typical coastal fishery that I've described before, with quay, auction hall, handling, cold storage area, and restaurants. Area 2 is for aquaculture. So to support the aquaculture, they have a landing quay, handling shed, and process factories separately at that location. And that's for the fish farms that you can see with the number 3 on them. So those are floating fish farms. Obviously, this is in a very relatively sheltered area. So that's a completely different type of harbour. In Denmark, this is an enclosed harbour that has a number of functions, but fisheries is one of the larger uses of this harbour. So number 1 there is the auction hall. So a lot of fish land there at Area 1. But what you do have in Area 2 is you have fish factories, fish meal and fish oil factories. So Area 2 also lands fish directly into those factories. So it's just pumped straight from the quay into the harbour, into the buildings. So 2 different processes happening within the same harbour. Area 3 is where they have areas to stretch the trawler nets and repair them, detangle them, etc. And Area 4 is where they have a floating dock and shipyard for the repair of fishing vessels. Okay. Going back to a Japanese example, so this is a very large harbour where the auction halls are very significant. And what they've done is they've separated the auction halls depending on the type of fish. And that can be because you might get different agents or buyers interested in different fish types, for example. And the ground floor is for handling and auction and preparation and dispatch of the fishery products. And on the upper floors, they've got admin offices and public areas, restaurants, etc. So here's a slightly different model of what you could do with fishing harbours. So the Shetland Isles are off the northeast of the UK. In fact, they're as close to Norway as they are to the UK. And there are 2 harbours in red, Lerwick and Scalloway, where there are auction halls. They're only a few miles apart, so they're actually operated as a single market by the same enterprise. So in combination, this is where the largest UK landings are sold. But what actually happens is you can see all the black marked harbours. The fish gets landed at the red harbours or any of those other black harbours there, and it gets trucked, ferried over to the 2 red locations. So wherever you got a black dot, the fish has been landed, put in a truck, and shipped to auction at a central location. In other words, you don't have to have your auction hall at all the harbours. You could do it in a combined operation in one location. And that's exactly what happens here. Now, people do turn up in person to buy at the auctions, but it's also online. And 50% of that fish is sold overseas. Basically, there's a ferry nearby which can take it in a refrigerated container and carry on its journey around the world. It may be flown on from Aberdeen and end up in Japan and other locations. So switching to another example from Ireland, which is where I'm from originally. This is the largest fishing port there. It has a lot more boats at the 15 to 45 meter range, but it also caters for home and visiting boats up to 92 meters long, and it has a marina as well. So in total, there's about 1,000 meters of quay. Some of it's only at 1.5 meter water depth. The deeper parts, which are in yellow towards the bottom of the page, they're the newer ones. They are up to 12 meters deep. And you can see what it's done is the sea is towards the bottom of the slide. It has expanded seawards into deeper water, basically, over time. It has shore power for some seasonal berths as well in the off-season. And it did have an auction hall, but the local town turned into very much being about fish processing. So what happens now is the fish is bought before it's landed. It's graded and weighed and sold directly to the fish processing facilities. It also has a 650-ton sinker lift and painting shed. I can show you some images of that in the next slide. So the shore power or lay-by berths are in the top left image, with the auction hall behind it, now, which is now redundant, and it's no longer an auction hall, but it's used for storage. The top right has the sinker lift, so obviously a fishing boat can be raised up, moved on rails for either working in the open, or it can go into the painting shed, depending on what's actually required. The bottom left image shows you a shore power connection to one of those boats as well. And the bottom right image looks back towards sea. So towards, you can see that the deeper quays are further out. And one of the features, actually, I should point out for fishing boats is you don't always get this in container ports, for example. You get the rafting of vessels quite often. So vessels may be tied up alongside each other when they're not offloading cargo. They may be tied up together. So you may get a finger pier and more than one vessel either side, for example. So that's a frequent occurrence in fishery harbours. So switching to Ghana, in this case, Ghana has had a program of expansion of and creation of fishery harbours, as I'm sure our colleague will describe in a minute. But this is one example where I've been sent information on. I wasn't personally involved, but the top right image, you can see the quay and buildings under construction. There was no harbour before. It was previously exposed, very limited facilities, but the new harbour was created about 2022. So there's 180 meters of quay, a reclamation. So in the bottom image, you can see a reclamation in brown and grey behind the breakwater and revetment. So they've created a working area beside a crowded town, a quay of 180 meters, fish market, ice making and fuel facilities, and shelter for the vessels. So it's really changed the situation around a lot, and it's a good thing to see. If you look at it in another image from Google Earth, earlier this year, I've circled in red the fishing harbour, but what you can see in the background is protection for other beaches, which obviously provides shelter for lots of other small vessels as well. Dix Cove in Ghana, the same thing, previously exposed to waves, no market facilities, boats landing simply on the beach. It now has a new breakwater that shelters the bay and a quay. The quay in the bottom left, you can see, provides access to a fishing market hall, fuel, etc. And that was created in about 2021. I think you can see it better in the next image. You can see the new breakwater here towards the outside of the bay. Vessels still in the water or along the beach, but obviously much more sheltered than before. And you can see a group of them alongside the quay waiting to offload cargo, fish. And you can see new sheds and buildings in the area behind for the ice making, the storage, the market hall, etc. At the back. Okay, and just to show a slightly larger development in Sekondi, here you have a breakwater providing a much longer quay length. First, one of the quays is for mooring and the other is nearer to auction halls and other facilities. And you obviously have a lot more shelter for vessels in the background here as well. So it's also turned around that situation in Secondi. Here's another one in Sri Lanka, just to give you an example. So this is a location where there was no harbour. The vessels landed on the beach, and unfortunately people used to die landing their vessels on the beach as well, and obviously it was only day boats. So a quay of 100 meters has been created, and you can see boats rafting there on the quay. Breakwaters circled in one. There are ice making facilities, other facilities onshore, fuel, and the other beaches within. So it's 100 meters initially. The other beaches, obviously, the vessels can land in, and because of sediment, a groin was needed at the north end as well to try and control the sediment. So the new harbour has changed it from day boats landing, although there are still day boats, to a mix of day and multi-day boats, and the use of ice and the connection to a market so they can sell directly to the capital in Colombo with fresh fish. And the quay can be extended from 100 to 250 meters in the future. But yeah, those are the main features. So it's got about 50 multi-day boats and a lot more day boats, 5 to 10 meters long, and canoes as well. Just to show you what can happen when you build a fishing harbour, we're getting towards the end of the presentation. So Leon had a harbour developed quite a long time ago, 30, 40 years ago. And there's a very strong north to south sediment drift. Now that coastline was straight originally, but what you can see now is there's about 1,000 meter difference between high water on the north side to the south side. There's been accretion on the north and erosion on the south. And you can see that eventually that harbour that is beginning to suffer siltation, it's coming around the corner, even with a 1,000 meter long breakwater arm. So the harbour is now at siltation risk, and there are downstream erosion potential risks as well to the town that you can see in the image. It can be worse. Corinda in Sri Lanka was built, and it had the central portion is where the fishing harbour is, and that was the initial construction. And when it was built initially, unfortunately, not sufficient account was taken of sedimentation, and it completely silted across. When I went there originally, they were describing that the fishermen were describing that they would play cricket across the entrance, for example. So extra groins were added later, and what that's done is it's bought it time, because the sediment continues to come, it's continuing to accumulate around the corner. And in fact, what it's doing is it's just pumping around that breakwater in. So basically the heights inside the harbour are half of what they should have been. So the location just isn't working like it was originally intended to. So there are risks with fishing harbours being smaller and being in that sediment, being in a highly active sediment zone. So just to summarize, I hope I've tried to convey to you that fishing harbours do have unique features that need to be understood when you're planning them. And that's why we've moved to try and develop this updated guidance on the planning of fishing ports. It is substantially more content-wise than it was before. And we thought that case studies or examples are good to show people the range of circumstances that you can come across. Hopefully the objectives have been fulfilled. It's now, a few hundred pages. But just one general message. So I may have been chairing this working group and have 35 years experience, but you always learn more, basically. I learned a lot more about auction halls and things like that I didn't know about before. And it was a very interesting experience trying to pick the best recommendations across experiences around the world, really. And the working group included young professionals, older professionals, and it was a good experience, I think, for increasing your knowledge, networking, and I think employers generally appreciate it as well on your CV. So I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Martin. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. Okay, let me just put my camera on as well. So yeah, so we are at the point where we'll have a short, panel engagement discussion. I've got a couple of questions that I had also jotted down myself and prepared for this event. So I'll just go through them. But at the same time, I see there's some questions coming through. No, thanks, Gift, for your very an enthusiastic comments. So we'll go through them now, and as best as we can. And then yeah, colleagues, you're also more than welcome to put up your hand. So let me then I think let's first start with I see Captain Aziz has joined us, so perhaps we can start with him. Captain Aziz, Assalamu alaikum. Can you maybe just quickly introduce yourself? Just tell us, who you are. And I've got just a little question for you that I can start. So Captain Aziz, if you can maybe just put on your camera and mic and just introduce yourself. Hi, Captain Aziz. Yeah. We'll maybe come back to you then, Captain, if you can try and unmute in the meantime. Stephen, let me come to you now. So, obviously having a look at now the presentation by Martin, quite a lot, goes into it. And then if I think about it now, I mean, essentially it's a business plan. What you're putting together with Fishing Harbours is a business plan. Checking your customers' clients' needs and whatnot. So just maybe from an African context, Stephen, and just from your side as from Ghana, maybe first give us your view of this presentation, then also give us some insight into Ghana. How's the fishing industry in Ghana? Typical challenges you might have. So just to give us a context as well. Stephen.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. And let me take the opportunity to thank the speaker, Martin, for that elaborate presentation. It was very well thought through and very useful. We thank you so much for such knowledge sharing. I think typically across all sites, we have similar challenges. In Ghana, along the coastline of about 550 kilometers, we have about 12 fish landing sites that are dotted across the coastline. And typically, we have similar challenges with siltation and the development. But coming to Tema Port, we have a lot of challenges, but we have also areas of interest that we have developed. In our ports, for example, in Tema, we started the process of cold ironing, where we provide spaces for vessels to take power and to boost their power requirements before they leave the port. Then also, when it comes to cargo handling, the handling of the fish cargo. In the Tema port, for example, stevedoring is privatized, 100% privatized, and we have private participants doing the stevedoring of fish. For the Ports Authority, we provide only the equipment, the cranes, the forklifts that will be required to undertake cargo discharge, whilst we supervise the stevedoring activity through tallying. But stevedoring is privatized. Then we have security issues also, where we have full private security operation for the cargo that is delivered. The port is only responsible for security for the infrastructure of the port. So security at the gates, security at the checkpoints, security across the car parks, the various net mending yards, just to make sure that the infrastructure is safe. But when it comes to the security of the cargo fish, the private owners are responsible for ensuring that their fish or cargo is safe. We have also added an aspect to the fishing harbor, and it's the first one in Ghana. Just a month ago, we commissioned a health post inside the fishing harbor. And the idea is to take care of the health needs of those who come to do business and those who work in the fishing harbor. And it's a very small facility. It's only a 6-bed capacity health post, but that is proving to be a very good addition to the fishing harbor in Tema. People quickly can get access to first aid. People can quickly get access to a doctor to attend to their health challenges. There are some developments that we are undertaking to improve our fishing harbor, Tema fishing harbor. For example, we have the southern breakwater that is undergoing major repair and upgrade. It's currently ongoing, and it's an activity that we have looked forward so much to. At some point, portions of the breakwater was being compromised because of wave action and, of course, age. But now we currently are undertaking a repair and upgrade of the breakwater. We have also a plan to undertake the deepening of our inner and outer fishing harbor, where we handle the tuna vessels and then the trawler vessels. So this part of the fishing harbor has a water depth of about 6 meters, from 3.5 meters to 4 meters in the inner fishing harbor, and up to 6 meters in the outer. There are plans to deepen it. The reason is simple. In the fishing harbor, we are next to the main port, Tema Port. Now, oftentimes we have some vessels, fishing vessels, going into the main port because of infrastructure challenges, typically because of draft challenges and because of length overall challenges. So we, last year, for example, the Tema fishing harbor, we handled over 460 fishing vessels calling the Tema fishing harbor, and over 112 or 110 vessels calling the main port. These are fishing vessels. Now, the decision is that if we are able to engineer the fishing harbor and deepen or dredge portions of the fishing harbor about up to a depth of about 7.5, we're going to have about 70% of the fishing vessels that go into the main port coming back to the fishing harbor where they actually are supposed to be. So this is something that we are seriously considering. The board has taken it up. In fact, only this week, they visited the Tema fishing harbor to appraise themselves of these recommendations that have come up. So these are a few of the developments that I want to share across board, and I'm sure as we go forward and as other issues come, we'll address them along the line. Thank you, Ahmed.
No, thank you, Stephen. Much appreciated for those comments and then insight as well. It shows you that as much as some might think fishing harbors are small facilities. There's a lot of challenges that come with that as well, and also they are very important economic drivers for any country. It's an important food source. So one shouldn't take it too lightly at the same time. Martin, just maybe your reflection on Stephen's comments through your obviously working group and studies. I'm sure you would have picked up similar globally.
Yeah, thank you, Takir. Thank you, Madase, Stephen. I remember Tema Harbour quite well. But yeah, and I see from one of the comments about the justification or economics of harbours. it is often necessary for governments to support the development of fishery harbours, because the benefits are often indirect to the economy. So it's hard to get a normal straight business. It's not always possible to get a private harbour to be economically with a good cost benefit ratio. It may need government support, and that is very common, unfortunately. But generally, like I say, the indirect benefits to the economy, the preservation of culture as well, the history of a place. Fishing harbours have a significant value in that element. So sustaining fishing harbours through the challenges that they face, and some harbours will have greater challenges because of changes in market circumstances. I mean, I know that there are challenges off Ghana and other places from potential overfishing by external deep sea vessels. That's a feature which can take away and make it harder for local fishermen. So, I mean, occasionally you do get private harbour developments. It just depends on the circumstances of a local place. So someone has to do a market study, get a financial expert or economist involved to make sure the numbers add up. Otherwise, you may be seeking government assistance, or the whole process may be initiated or supported by the government, like the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority, for example, or other agencies across Africa and elsewhere around the world. It is often a government initiative to support the fishing industry. And of course, the fishing industry keeps changing. So that's another reason for change. So you get this change in vessels. I was talking about day boats landing on a beach versus multi-day boats. So longer vessels may require deeper water. That might be more of an issue for a harbour, might need more protection. But there is a return because hopefully they're bringing better quality fish back into the country. Well, and that might be compared to importing. So if a nation can improve the quality of what it gets sustainably from the sea in terms of fish, that's always a good thing. And if you're doing it through a harbour, make it more efficient to land more good quality fish to support your population, that's a good thing. But looking at the sustainability guidelines that are out there to make sure that you do it in that way is crucial as well. Avoiding, minimizing impact to the environment wherever possible, choose your site carefully, etc. So and Tema that Stephen was talking about. So I think I had one image of Tema, but that was of the very small boat. So it does, like Stephen said, it has a range of vessel sizes, up to tuna, etc. So and that's typical in a harbour. You can get this range of vessels, and that's an evolution over time as well.
No, definitely. Things change over time, and I like the cultural aspect of culturally fishing being very important. In the African sense as well. It's a source of income and food for the community as well. Can I just check then, Captain Aziz? I don't know if you're able to unmute from your side. There you go, Captain. Thanks. If you can introduce yourself, Captain Aziz, and then also give us your views on the discussion so far.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank Mr. Martins for the well-delivered lesson and your very self, Mr. Ahmed. I thank you all. I thank all the guests in attendance. I am Captain Akinoye Aziz from Nigeria. And it's unfortunate I did not start when Mr. Martin was trying to really just join. But notwithstanding, from the perspective of my colleagues from Ghana, I think I can be able to pick the picture of what is going on. So let me just briefly, the case of Nigeria is exceptionally different now. Because when we talk of fishing port and terminal, Nigeria can boast of about 4 fishing port and terminal. But unfortunately, I cannot tell you where anyone is operating up to 50% capacity now. They are totally almost in dilapidated condition. In Lagos alone, we have 2 fishing port and terminal. One is in Lagos Island, another one is in Kirikiri, Lagos. The 2 are located in Lagos area here. Then we have another one in Calabar, Far East. And we have another one in Warri, Niger Delta area. All these one are big modern fishing port and terminal. In those days of Nigeria, they were fully in operation. And that is where Nigeria got its right, the time when Nigeria had its peak in fishing, when the export was booming and every other thing was okay. So there was government hand in every port. Government really invested heavily in all these fishing ports. Talk of 1970 to 1980 or thereabout like that. I think Nigeria had the highest export of fish and especially shrimps to different parts of the Europe and Africa here. But as time goes on, things turn around, and it's like the joker was diverted from this fishing to other oil company. So that is from there Nigeria started having what we can refer to as a decline in fishing, because the concentration is no more on the fishing port. So when you get there to all these fishing ports now, you see that it has been concession, and a lot of activities that are not similar to fishing are going on there, especially oil and gas. You see many of our ports they are using them as container now, container terminal, instead of fishing. So you see a lot of fishing facility in dilapidated condition, and they are being used for another thing. Even the stevedoring that are supposed to be, they are all private stevedoring that are working there, but now they are working with another activity like oil and gas, container, surface tugboat, all these things. So apart from Kirikiri fishing terminal in Lagos, there is no single other terminal that are in operation now. And this Kirikiri fishing terminal also, the operation is just below 50%. Because when you talk in those days when Nigeria was having enough fishing trawler, I think we had almost 300 plus fishing trawler entering different ports and harbor. But today, we hardly manage up to 150 and thereabout. And this 150 and thereabout, if they have to come on the same day or maybe the same period, there is nowhere to bat. We are all contesting for small spaces within this terminal, within this port. We are sharing spaces with other maritime workers like oil and gas and container, this and that. So that is the problem we are facing now in Nigeria. And another thing is sediments. The ports, nearly or yearly, the space allocated to every company need to be dredged, because you see that the depth is not there. Even sometimes when you need to come alongside, you have to calculate the tide. You cannot just come anyhow, anytime. You have to watch the tide. When it is high tide, you can alongside your boat. Or when you want to go out also, you have to watch the tide if it is not favorable. All these things that are not supposed to be the feature of the well-designed port. What I'm saying indirectly is that though Nigeria, the only way we can go about it is when we go into proper rehabilitation of our port, maybe involvement of PIANC, international regulation policy. So if we can adopt that one under our blue economy present policy now, I think Nigeria can still get it right.
Yeah,
it's not that Nigeria is not having, we are having. What we need to do is rehabilitation, modernization of our port and the terminal. Then we can get it right.
Yeah. No. Thanks, Captain Aziz. So I think that paints quite a different picture, and then very interesting insight. Coming from the top peak down to a dilapidated system, and I think one key thing that you pointed out there was a shift in government focus and a focus on more oil and gas and more attention went that way. So we hope that that does turn around. Maybe just coming back to Morten, how often have you seen anything similar in other ports? And then my other question I wanted to ask you is that what are the silent things that people don't talk about too loudly, that maybe lessons learned that you've picked up, observations at other ports?
Yeah, so like the captain was saying, there's definitely pressures to take over fishing ports at times for container or oil and gas use or bulk use. If people can make more money, then that is a risk, and someone needs to defend the fishing industry being in that location or demand compensation. So sometimes you can get the compensation in that if someone is doing a scheme, you can force the creation in some circumstances of a better fishing harbour. But there is the risk of the loss of fishing harbour facilities because of priority being given to other forms of port use. Yeah, that is a risk around the world. Yeah, definitely. In terms of the odd things that can happen as well, or the risks. So a feature of medium to small fishing harbours in the developed and developing world is that they may or may not be open to the public. So safety can be a consideration. So if you have the public walking around where you've got forklifts, you've got cranes operating, etc., avoiding accidents can be a problem. And the same issue can also, of course, lead on to potentially loss of goods. So you need to choose whether a quay or a back harbour area is open to the public or not, and apply security potentially. But it may be that there's been public access to a point and it has to be preserved in some way. Yeah. So it can be a challenge. So try and make it as safe as possible, but maintain public access wherever possible.
Yeah.
I think Han might have something to say on that.
Yeah. As I say, Han, let me take your hand, and then I'm going to just go through the comments just to maybe pick up a question or two. And I'm also posting a few polls in between. So just keep an eye out for that, colleagues. So I've put two specific to obviously now the PIANC working group 224. And I'll also drop a few things just related to this webinar specifically, if you can kindly participate. Han, let's take your hand, and then I'll look for a comment in the chat so long.
Yeah, thank you very much, Taukir, and wonderful presentation, Martin. Thank you very much. One question I have is I read about an initiative by FAO, the World Food and Agricultural Organization, to improve the planning and conditions for fishing ports, which I guess they name blue something. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the United Nations FAO does look at it, the ocean, under blue ocean policy, but they're really looking at fisheries as a resource. So it's from that perspective. So the UN FAO, they also publish global statistics on the fishing industry. It's actually a good source of information for fishing harbours as to what's going on. So there are free publications online, which are referred to in our document as well. So there's an annual global fisheries report, which talks about what type of fish are being fished where, the tonnages, the typical length of vessels, etc. But it does look at the type of issues for facing the sustainability of fish stock in different areas around the world and the challenges. And those can include illegal, unregulated landings of fish, because there are many nations around the world which operate quotas, for example, on certain fish stocks to try and preserve them. And they may even also designate areas as marine reserves in order to help fish stock increase again, where it's been in a critical state. And that has worked positively in some areas. And I think more of that is needed. The risk, of course, is like I was saying, the unregulated market where people are coming along in industrial scale trawler fleets and decimating fleets in some parts of the world. Off the Pacific coast of Latin America is one particular location where that's a major issue, for example. There is an upturn in aquaculture, the use of fish farms, by the way, as well. So the nature of fishing may change a bit over time. In terms of Africa, you need reasonably sheltered waters is sort of one issue, background issue with that. I did see one of the comments was about fish processing and the constraints around that side. I mean, really, if you're looking at any location and fisheries improvements, if you're in a remote location, you're trying to improve from a basic level of day craft landing on the beach to make them safer, use ice, get better quality fish. But in terms of fish processing, it depends whether a location justifies the development of a fish processing industry. And it may simply be that the basic need obviously is going to be land fish for human consumption, because some of this fish processing is for other animals and other uses. So it depends on your local market and what can be sold. Can you create a market sometimes? People do export high-value fish on airplanes as well.
Yeah. I hope that covered your comments, Han.
Yeah, that's fine. I think this Blue Ocean program is also very important for Africa, isn't it?
Yeah. No, definitely. I was I think within the African context, and then I might want then both Stephen and Captain Aziz then to come in. It's tying back to just I'm going to pick up on a comment here now. So one thought that came to mind now is that you want to do fishing sustainably, and then how much fishing can you do? And then I would assume that there would be some form of limit in terms of how many fishing harbors one could have, within any country, and not only the number but the size of it depends on your fish stock. And at the same time, you don't want to overfish because then you obviously you've got nothing left for the future. So there was a comment here from Gift, and I'll just go through it. It just says apparently the challenge is also the cost of accessing processing plants due to travel costs. The incapacity to access market opportunity is a problem for forcing them to sell their catches on the black market. And we all know about our dilapidated infrastructure, lack of maintenance, and pollution. So I think obviously this maybe speaking to the South African context, but I think let's maybe spin it onto the African context. So with that in mind, now the risk of now, if you want to call it illegal fishing, black market fishing, and then trying to protect overfishing and trying to do things very sustainably. Can I then check just maybe your comments and views, Stephen? What's going on within Ghana? Is it a problem? How are you managing it from your side?
Thank you, Ahmed. IUU fishing, as we call it, is a big issue in Ghana as well. And oftentimes we have the regulators, being the Fisheries Commission of Ghana under the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture, constantly educating the fisher business people on the processes and the ways to proceed, and several fora to let people know the situation, various visits from the Fisheries Commission itself and other interested bodies to help. And now what we have in place is that occasionally and randomly we attach people from the Navy, that's from the Army, to join vessels when they are going on expedition, just to observe what they do, how they do it, and to report back on the processes and the practices that they apply. And we are not seeing so much improvement, but we believe that is the way to go, only to sensitize the operators in the field and to increase their education. And currently, we are trying to come back to from about 2 years ago, we received a yellow card from the EU, and we have been having visits, and they are confirming that it looks like within this year that will be reversed accordingly. So yeah, it's a process that is ongoing, and that so much effort is being made to curb. Thank you.
No, thanks, Engineer Stephen. And look, it happens. It's a reality that we have to face. It happens. Captain Aziz, maybe coming to you to then maybe paint then the Nigerian context and in that regard. And I would assume, and I'm just making an assumption here, that with the current state, it becomes even more difficult and more pronounced, especially illegal fishing and black market fishing. But yeah, just maybe give us your context and your view. And if I'm incorrect, please correct me. But what's happening within Nigeria and what's being done about sustainable fishing and illegal fishing?
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, because I have some problem with my network here. Well, in Nigeria, actually, Nigeria has ever been the book of EU. I think there has never been any serious period when Nigeria has been caught for IU. Actually, the IU that used to happen is not close to the coast, maybe around the EEZ economic zone there. And now, Nigeria, we are engaging this. All the fishing vessels have been installed with VMS. We monitor all the vessels with our VMS, and the Navy are always on patrol, day and night. And that is why we have the VMS, we have the AIS. When the vessel is operating and it's not seen on the VMS, the Navy will immediately track that echo and get to that particular vessel, and such a vessel could be arrested. The issue we had in Nigeria before, not on this illegal fishing, but mostly on this security. That was the biggest issue we had. Yeah. And when you look at Nigeria for the past 20-25 years, it has been a recurrent incident, especially November, December, when you hear people being kidnapped or being killed while in operation at sea. But luckily, this last year now, there was no single issue of source. Nigerian government has swung into action, and the new company where I am working currently now has provided enough job for the vulnerable people within the area where that incident normally happens. And I can thank God today that creating job is a panacea for this crisis. And for now, Nigeria is calm, cool and calm. Anybody can go and do the fishing, can go and do your fishing anytime without any molestation. So for the IUU of a thing, I think that one has been taken care of through the use of our electronics and the surveillance, which the government is, I can give kudos to our government for that one.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Yeah. No, it's great to hear that there's a lot of focus on the security and safety aspect.
Yes.
And using technology, which I want to maybe touch on as maybe my last round of questions. But let me take your hand, Martin. If you can come through, then I'm going to just come to my last questions here.
Just to add to what Stephen was saying, so some countries, what they do is they develop a national strategy or master plan for fishing. So that may be looking at where should existing harbours be improved or new ones added. So that is the prioritization that may be needed, and that should obviously take account of fishery resources as well as the needs of fishermen and local populations. And obviously it can include the larger scale harbours, but it may also include the smaller scale examples. And some of those I showed in Sri Lanka and Ghana can be very effective means of poverty alleviation. So there may be funds or loans available from the African Development Bank or other agencies to support that sort of activity from time to time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but having a national strategy and prioritization is always a good thing.
Yeah. So it's quite key and critical that obviously, government must come to the party and drive these initiatives to ensure that that things are done safely and sustainably at the end of the day. Okay, so I'm going to one last round of questions from my side. Colleagues in the chat, thank you for your comments and questions. We'll pick up from that, and I see Martin, you have been responding to some of them, so thank you for that. And those we haven't responded to yet, we'll then on email just collate that and then send it through to you. So yeah, two more questions, one technical and then closing. So let me start, maybe Captain Aziz from your side. You spoke about the VTS and the tracking and all of that. So when it comes to now the future of fishing in your space, how do you see technology coming through? I don't think we touched on technology yet in this discussion, but now AI technology, how do you see that coming through and improving the fishing within Nigeria? Captain Aziz? Hi, Captain. Okay,
Hello?
we'll come.
Hello, you can hear
Okay,
me?
there you go.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
hear you now. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I say with all the problem we have in Nigeria and the current situation, I still believe that Nigeria can revive its fishing ports and terminal through rehabilitation, strong enforcement, private sector participation, sustainable planning, and effective implementation of the blue economy, especially the PIANC, if the PIANC international policy is enforced and incorporated into our blue economy here in Nigeria, I think we are good to go. With the latest technology equally involved, I think Nigeria is good because we have all the potential to grow.
Okay. Perfect. No, thanks, Captain. Stephen, just coming to you now. Just on the technology side of things, artificial intelligence, smart technologies. Just give us quick insight. What are you doing as Ghana?
Thank you very much. For the fishing harbor, of course, the main port is on a different level. The fishing harbor is trying to catch up. What we have currently in terms of automation is the vessel clearance system, where the booking of vessel and allocation of berths are done online. We have the labor system, which is also online. We have the service request, like hotworks on vessels, like fire standby duties, like equipment requests for forklifts and cranes are all online. And these are the online activities that we have. Going forward, we are looking at adding other aspects onto the system. We are engaging our IT. All these are developed internally, in-house, that we use. So we are engaging our IT to hook on other aspects of our operations and services. But basically, this is what we have. In the main port, it is paperless, almost 100%. But in the fishing harbor, they are catching up. Thank you.
No, excellent. I mean, that's convenience. Look, you think of convenience and efficiency at the end of the day, and that's what we want to try and achieve. So Martin, I'm going to close with you. So I'm just having a quick look at the poll we put out. So the first poll I put out there was, which intervention would deliver the biggest step change in performance where you operate? So it's just a general question to everyone. And the biggest percentage was on governance and operating model. So everyone, so that's 45% saw that governance being more critical. The second question we put out said, which statement best describes your current level of digitization? So that's following through what Stephen also mentioned, and so it's an equal split. So mostly paper based. So it seems like still a lot of us are still paper based, unfortunately, and some digitization, basic price boards escalation. So partial digitization. So that still is quite a big thing. I know it's still quite new, and a lot of countries may still need to catch up. So just your reflection on that, Martin, and then we'll then take that as your closing statement.
Yeah, so just with the digitalization side, so there are many countries have started from a very low base and improved. So some of the Sri Lankan harbours are one example where there were very basic facilities, and quite a few additional harbours have been added, and gradually IT computing has come in and helped to manage ship arrivals, who has priority, the selling of fish on to send it to beyond the fishing harbour to markets in the capital, for example. So it does happen from a low base in other countries. The so-called developed world was in that same position not so long ago as well, and has moved forward. It is a gradual transition, and I expect it to happen across Africa gradually over time. But obviously, it needs someone to prioritize it and support it, and so sometimes it needs an initiator.
Yeah, just need someone just to drive it and then take initiative and get it done.
You can either have fishing cooperatives or you can have government support or a mix of both. So fishing cooperatives exist in many locations around the world and can be very beneficial to lobby and make things happen for fishermen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you need to take, the livelihood of I mean, everyone needs to earn a living, and we need to take everyone into account as well. So colleagues, that in essence comes to the end. I'm mindful of time. So just in closing from my side, a very insightful discussion today, and I want to just extend my sincere gratitude to our speakers and panel members. Thank you for making the time and to come and speak to us here today, and for having that open dialogue as well. What we've explored today obviously underscores the vital importance of continuous innovation, research, and responsible professional work. So that's all that had gone into now the working group report, and just to improve how we do things on the coast and inland in terms of our waterways. For those who want to delve deep into the topic, if you have questions, I'll keep this chat running for a little while. Drop those questions. In future, maybe we might, maybe Han and Landry, something to think about, maybe a dedicated email that if anyone wants any technical questions, maybe anything around membership, something that we can maybe do for the future. I've dropped now the link to, if you are not PIANC members, we do encourage you. It doesn't cost that much. I think it's just over 100 euros a month. Please do connect and join. And when you become a member, you've got access to all of PIANC's technical guidelines. And there's lots of them out there and deals with a lot of different aspects of ports and coastal engineering. If you have youngsters, you've got students still in university, PIANC does offer a 2-year free membership. So and again, I mean, for anyone who might have an interest or just become a member for 2 years, at least on a student level, then they can gauge if this is a field they want to go in or not. So PIANC does make that allowance, and I think for me it's a good window to expose young professionals, young students, hopefully to spark an interest into this unique field. So yeah, we'll have our next webinar in the next 2 months, 3 months. I did put out a poll just to get the gauge from yourself as audience. How often do you want to see this? Thank you for participating, and thank you for rating us quite high. I think we've got an average of 4.5 rating, which is quite good. So it means that we are obviously hitting the mark. If there's anything we can improve on, please do let us know. So yeah, I think from my side, let me then officially close. We look forward to seeing you at the next PIANC Africa event. So until next time, keep on learning, keep on exploring. This is PIANC Africa webinar. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Captain Aziz.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. And hi to Prof. Han.
Yeah. If anyone wants, like I see there's a hand, we can just let me then take the hand, or was it just to say goodbye? Let me then stop the recording. But yeah, like I said, this thing is recorded. we'll put it on YouTube soon. So keep an eye out for that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
The recording.
We appreciate it.
Thanks. Let me just clear people. Let me just end the event, and I will allow everyone else to leave now.